All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now talk about the game tonight in Brazil between the Packers and the Eagles. And it's going to be really hard to beat this game from last night between the Chiefs and the Ravens because that was, what a way to open up the season. And there's a lot more that I wanted to say about that game, and we'll continue those discussions, next week. But let's get into this game now. So last year, of course, the Packers, roller coaster of a season for them. They started off good, then they had their middle of the season struggles. Jordan Love was not playing well, and then something clicked, and Jordan Love was playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Packers were able to make the playoffs at 9-8. They beat the Cowboys, and, they had the 49ers on the ropes, but, fell a little bit short there. And ultimately, they got eliminated. And here we are now again. And with the Eagles, they started off 10-1, and they played the 49ers late in the season. And that was like a soul crusher. And that just like changed the momentum of the entire season for them. Now, they were still kind of struggling here and there, but they were still winning games. The only game they lost was against the Jets, which they kind of gave that game away. But that was the only game they lost. But then they played the 49ers and they got absolutely stomped. And that kind of led to a collapse. They still made the playoffs, but Dallas ended up winning the division over them. They played the Bucs again. They played the Bucs early on in the season, and they beat them. But in the playoffs, it was a horrendous performance, to say the least. And they got eliminated. But now, going into this season for the Packers, they made some changes. You bring in Josh Jacobs as your new starting running back. Need a big game out of him tonight in fantasy. And then for the Eagles, they made a lot of changes too. Well, also with the Packers, they changed defensive coordinators. No more Joe Barry. For the Eagles, they changed coordinators. Made a lot of additions on the defensive side of the ball. They brought in Saquon Barkley. I think this game is going to be a lot of fun, what we're about to watch tonight. Especially with the quarterbacks. The quarterbacks, I think, are going to both make some plays. I think, for me, the things I want to keep an eye on, how the Eagles' defense looks, because, they drafted a couple of corners. They brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They also brought in Devin White, and they signed Bryce Huff from the Jets. I want to see how this defense looks. I also want to see how the running backs are. How is Saquon Barkley going to look with the Eagles? I think he's going to have a big year. And Josh Jacobs, what is he going to look like with the Packers? That's another thing I want to, keep an eye on in tonight's game. And then obviously, the quarterbacks. How are the quarterbacks going to look? Can Jordan Love repeat what he did towards the end of the year? Can he take that and do it over the course of a full season? And I think he will. I think he's going to have a really good season. And I think Jalen Hurts is going to bounce back. Now, the one thing you think about is this collapse last year happened when you had guys like Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce in the locker room. Now those guys are not there. So how is their absence going to impact this team? I think it will. But are they going to be able to overcome that? Because, Jason Kelce, and Fletcher Cox, those were staples for this team. And they're not there anymore. And, I did some segments on the Eagles and that Jalen Hurts and some other guys in the locker room are going to step up and take on those leadership roles. Saquon Barkley, one of those guys too. So that's something else to keep an eye on throughout the season. But like I said, how are the defenses going to look? Because, again, the Packers have a new defensive coordinator. There's a lot to pay attention to tonight. Now, in terms of, some of the betting stuff, so on CBS, right now, the line is changed. It opened up as a pick'em. Right now, the Eagles are 2.5-point favorites. And I'll be honest, I am kind of leaning towards the Eagles in this game tonight. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be high scoring. I don't know if it's going to match the drama that we saw last night. But I think this is going to be a very entertaining game. I think both quarterbacks are going to play well. They're going to make their fair share of plays. Also, the Packers receiving corps. Who out of those young guys is going to have a big game tonight? Because last year it just seemed like it was a new guy each week. Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs. Can Christian Watson stay healthy? Because I feel like if Christian Watson stays healthy, he's going to be the best receiver on this team. That's another thing to pay attention to. Right now, also, when it comes to money line, Packers are plus 115, Eagles are minus 135, and then the over/under is 48.5 right now, and most people are taking the over. Again, this is how CBS has it. Like I said, I'm leaning towards the Eagles. But I think it's gonna be a really good game. I think. And the Eagles are one of those teams. They're trying to get themselves back to being, at the top as one of the top teams in the NFC, because that's what they were for the last couple of years, making it to the Super Bowl, and then when they started off 10-1, then once that went away, and they collapsed, well, they weren't considered that anymore. But this team has just loads of talent. And, there's pressure on Nick Sirianni to do well. Because you hear it in the media. If he doesn't do well, he's gone. If the Eagles miss the playoffs, he's not coming back. And it definitely was interesting that despite making the playoffs, making it to the Super Bowl in his second year as a head coach, because of how bad last year went, there were people calling for his job. And some people say, well, it's because he's not fully running the offense. It's because you had two great coordinators the first year, his second year, when they made it to the Super Bowl, and they left, and things changed. They went from Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon to Brian Johnson and Sean Desai. And it just did not... The offense took a step back and the defense wasn't good. Because in 2022, you had multiple guys, more than just two guys with double-digit sacks. You didn't have that last year. So, there's definitely some pressure on Nick Sirianni. I mean, they completely changed coordinators. Now you got Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. And let's see how that goes. This could definitely be a playoff preview. This might not be the only time that we see these two teams face off, because I think the Packers are going to be a really good team this year, and they're going to be battling it out with the Lions. But we could see these teams play in the playoffs again. And the last time these two teams met was a couple years ago. We did see Jordan Love for a little bit in that game because Aaron Rodgers got hurt. That was on that Sunday night game. Now let's see, what it's like here in Brazil. See what that environment's like, too. Because that crowd's going to be really into it. But also a reminder, the game is on Peacock. So make sure that you have it, or if you know someone that has it, to borrow it. Like, my family's going to be doing tonight because my cousin has it. So that's how they will be watching the game tonight. I'll be out for this game, but I'll be locked in. Like I said, need Josh Jacobs to have a big game tonight because I started the Chiefs defense in multiple leagues last night, and yeah, did not go well. It was looking good because when they got that sack fumble, I was like, great, keep it like that. But then the Ravens they torched the defense in the second half. Lamar Jackson torched the defense in the second half. But yeah, no. I listen. These teams are up. Just show us, what you guys got now. Can you match what last night showed us? Because it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to give us an encore performance like that, or give us a match a performance like that. But yeah, no, I'm curious to see what how this game goes. Also, I want to bring up Matt LaFleur because I wasn't really a Matt LaFleur believer, but last year he really showed me something because this team looked like they were done at one point, and Jordan Love started playing well, and this team rallied. And you know what? You got to give Matt LaFleur a lot of credit in that. Because his first few years as the coach, Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback still. Now, I think Matt LaFleur helped Aaron Rodgers get those 2 MVPs. I mean, obviously Aaron Rodgers did it, but I think the change from McCarthy to LaFleur, LaFleur had some, you got to give him a little bit of credit for Rodgers winning those MVPs. But again, you had Aaron Rodgers. How are you going to be without Rodgers? And last year got off to a good start. Then the middle of the season they struggled, but then they really turned it around. And I got to give Matt LaFleur some credit. Matt LaFleur is a good coach. So, let's see what these teams do this year. Let's see if Jordan Love can play like he did towards the end of the year for a full year. And let's see if the Eagles can bounce back. But let me know what you guys think. So, I'm picking the Eagles. I'm going to say 30-27 is going to be the final score. I was close last night. I said 24-20. It was 27-20. I'm going to say 30-27 is the final score tonight. Eagles win in a close one. So let me know what you guys think, though. Who do you think is going to win tonight? Let me know. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the $ icon in the chat. This will help you create a super chat. Any kind of comment you have for me that I can acknowledge during the live broadcast just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, and any contribution means the world to us. Also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. Again, any contribution you can make to the show would mean a lot to us. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about some of the big college football matchups for this weekend, as well as the early slate of games for Sunday. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.